Hello and welcome to part 3. So I've done quite a bit of work to this amplifier now, and we've now reached a point where we're ready to start wiring up the front panel and thinking about getting this chassis into the cabinet, which is just behind here. So problems to overcome, and amongst these problems that we've got to overcome, a member of the channel, subscriber of the channel, left a very interesting comment about this chassis and the way it fits into the back of this. Just back the camera out. So the way this fits into this case that we've seen before, and I can just about see, I might have to get the other camera to film this actually. Basically that goes in there, like so. Now one of the things that, and you can just see in there, one of the things that I pointed out, there we go, now you can see it, one of the things I pointed out in the previous videos was that the output transformer is on this side, the power is on this side, the speaker panel, which we need to change those sockets, don't worry about that, is on this side, which means we've got to take the speaker cables for the output transformer for the speakers right over here. So Mark, who's a subscriber to the channel, said to me, could you just completely reverse this chassis round and would the holes line up? And I kind of looked for a minute and I thought to myself, why didn't I think of that? So let's turn it round and see, and it does fit. It makes it a little more awkward to get that in because I've got nothing to get hold of as much. There we go. And it does fit, it does line up with the holes perfectly. Now, the output transformer is right at the side of the speaker sockets. Furthermore, because I mounted that transformer down at the bottom of the chassis there, that goes on the inside, sorry. That now fits there. But, problem 39D, we now finish up with the power on this side and the power transformer on this side. So we've got the power switch and the LED, and we've got the power transformer on that side. So now we've got to bring the wires across. But so that's kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. But then I suddenly looked at this cabinet, and obviously that was a great idea, but it kind of prompted me to actually look at this cabinet. And when I look at this cabinet, it's perfectly symmetrical. The only thing that makes this the top and this the bottom is that that's got the feet on, this has got the handle on, which I've already removed. So all we've got to do is turn this upside down like so, and now I'll just get that out of the way. And now we put this back in, and we've got everything the right way around. So the other advantage is the bottom has got slats in there, got hot, so for ventilation, well, hot air risers. So we've now got the ventilation on the top. The handle was absolutely trash anyway. The top of the cabinet looks worse than the bottom does. These can easily be screwed off, and I can just put some screws in there for just to make it look tidy. And if I put a handle on there, and if we just get the other part of that handle, if I put the handle on there, that now is the top. If you screw these off, which should come off pretty easy, I would have thought, like so, stick him in there, again. Oops, caught that on my foot. So, and there. So we take those out like so. Just get the bottom off the floor. We put the the front off the. Just get the front. So now that's the top with the ventilation. The bottom, which looked dreadful, is at the bottom. We're not bothered about the fact that the handle used to be. You can't see that, it's at the bottom. We can all screw those feet on, or we'll just put these feet on the bottom, and we'll get some new feet and put those on the bottom. And there we are. So now when we look at that, there's no difference. So in actual fact, that comment, I don't think if Mark hadn't have made that comment, I certainly wouldn't have worked out how to do that. So thanks for that, Mark. Some things you just can't see. Just turning the chassis around wouldn't have cut it, but turning the actual case around and everything there and just putting the handle on the top, well, that's a winner. So it just shows sometimes you know, you don't see things, or someone else takes a look at it and they spot something straight away, and then from that idea you go to another idea, and yeah, it's all sorted. So the only other thing was the wood that's got to go across those holes at the back, and the clearance for the capacitors. So now I've actually fitted the capacitors, so we're going to have a look at those now. If I pop this on here, you can see the capacitors. We'll just turn it that way. The lights are quite powerful. So you can see the capacitors now that have been added. So we've got the 22mm brackets. So we borrowed the hole in the middle for both of them, and then raised these ones on the end using spring washers, star washers. And these brackets, these clamps, were delivered with all the nuts and bolts. Again, no star washers in there. They will come loose with constant vibration. You must always have star washers on guitar amplifier brackets and things, or they just work the way loose with the vibration. So we've got those fitted. There's the centre tap coming across there from the transformer. We had to join that. It wasn't long enough. We used this tag strip, otherwise we'd just have everything crammed onto there and it would just look a mess. Having 2 on is bad enough, but 3 would have been no go. Now the other thing was this Zener diode that we're using to try and reduce the HT voltage, because I'm almost certain we'll have too much HT voltage on this amp for those tubes. So I had a bit of an experiment with this Zener diode, and this is a stud, as most of you all know more than me. This is a stud Zener diode, and running after a while I started realizing that these diodes need a heatsink that is isolated from ground, because how these work is that you ground the capacitors on this side of the diode. You wire the ground from the capacitors also to this side, and then this side goes to the ground on the bridge rectifier. So this actual bridge rectifier doesn't actually go to ground. It's almost elevated. It's the caps that go to ground, and then that then basically reduces the voltage. So when I just wired it up just temporary first time, and I thought, why is that not working? And I thought, duh, it's got to be isolated from ground. So I've made this I've actually got some more heat sinks coming that I've ordered, but basically I've made this one up, and what I've done is I've got a ground isolation pad underneath, and I've put some nylon bolts through there, which I've tightened up, which I'm going to super glue them so they won't come loose. And that's now, and then this diode will just dissipate its heat, hopefully. So that's basically what we've done there, and that's why we've got this strange looking bracket there. And that's more or less now where we are with this amplifier. The next thing we've got to do is wire up the front panel, which we've got here. Now I've already got all the potentiometers in there from part 2, and the knobs have now been delivered, but I'm not going to show you what they look like yet. I'm going to do that when the amp's finished. I've got a new LED in there, pilot light, because the old one was cracked, so I decided we're not going to use that. So we've got that installed. Right, so we've got quite a bit more done now. And you can see we've got the EQ done, volume, bass, treble, middle, and the presence control done as well. We've not got the cathode bypass capacitors on yet, because I don't need those to actually get this thing running. They're just an addition. So this is almost ready to fire up now. The amplifier section is all completely wired. So there we go. You can see underneath now. Right, we're going to fire this thing up now. So I've put just a little bit of voltage, about 15 or so volts through it, and just checked that all the plates are wired up properly. We've got no shorts. So now we're going to fire this up. So we've got this transformer hooked up just on the temporary for the time being, because of course we need to find the plate voltage so we can set the primary impedance on this transformer, and we'll go through that to show you how to do that later on. But the main thing is now it's fire up time. So I've got a couple of second-hand PCL83s because we don't want to trash them mullards. So we've got this, we want to make sure we've got this running. So I've just got a couple of second-hand ones in there. Primary CC83 12x7, probably best calling it a 12x7, aren't we, seeing as we're putting 12 volts through it. So it's a bit Heath Robertson now I've got this, but we've got this meter which is going to be monitoring the bias, and the other meter will be monitoring the HT as we go along, as I'm testing, probing. So I'm going to put some voltage on, make a start. So just start with 30 volts. And there we go, we've got 54 volts. And we should have more or less the same all the way down the line till it begins to draw current. And when it begins to draw current, we should see this meter begin to go up. Let's move this variac forward because I'm reaching over the camera tripod. So just going to go up a bit more. $83 volts. And we are drawing 100 milliamps, which is nothing. And that includes the variac as well. 101 volts we've got through it now. We've got 65 volts on the variac, so that's all looking pretty good. So I'm going to go up to 120 volts. Just gone a bit over 125. Let's see what we've got now. 183. And you can see the bias is beginning to come up. So we'll just let that rise. Let's see if we conduct in 180. That's come down. What we got on there? 128. Yes, we are conducting, and the bias is coming up. Which is another reason why I've put these second-hand tubes in, of course, because we don't want, if I've got a 270 ohm resistor, if that's too low, we don't want to be banging a lot of strain on those new mullards. Can't hear anything out of the speaker though, at all. Can't hear anything out the speaker. Tubes feel warm. This primer doesn't, but these do. So that's good. That's a start. Well, I think I might be able to hear something. So look what voltages we've got now. So node 1, we've got 171 volts and 124 on the variac. And node 2, we can test there. 124, 115 going into node 3. Yes, we have got sound, I can hear it. 112 going into node 4. That's looking good. Just going to go up a bit more. 133 milliamps we're drawing. 160 volts. Let's see what that voltage is now. That voltage is only 219. I think we're going to be all right with this, you know. We might not even need that that Zener diode. So we got 6 volts there. That's the volts drop across the bias resistor. So if we go on there, what we got, 217. It's about 210. Where's my calculator? Well, I've got 5.1 now while it's, so I think that resistor is going to be too low, because that's already, remember these tubes only dissipate 5.4 watts and we're already at 5.1 with 163 volts. So I think we are going to have to increase that cathode resistor almost certainly there, without a doubt, because if I put that on there, it's 216 volts. So if you take that roughly 6 off of there, that leaves 210. The resistor's 270, so 6.5 divided by 270, that gives you milliamps. Times it by, it's a rough one this, times that by 210 gives me a bit little less than that, because I haven't allowed for the 5% on the screens, but at this point we're just doing rough calculations. So yes, so I think that 270 is going to have to go up, and this is why I didn't want to put those mullards in. If we wind this up to 230 volts and they're dissipating at about 9 watts, it's going to fry them. So I've gone up to 188 volts on the variac, and I've now got 249 volts on there. So I think we're going to be just fine with this. So what are we looking for on that tube? 300 volts is the maximum on the plate, and 250 is the maximum on the screens, and we've only got 156 on the screen, so I think we can be removing that 10k resistor as well. It's looking like that. Right, I'm just going to do another quick bias calculation, because we don't want to be pushing these, even these second hand tubes, we don't want to be doing any damage. 7.63 by 270, so that is, bear in mind this is only one side, but that's fine because we don't have to divide it by 2. So there's 28 milliamps being drawn there. So I'll just take the 5% off. That leaves 26.8. Now then, we've got about 7.5 volts on there, and on there we've got 248. So if we take that off, if we just say 241, just as a rough calculation, 241, so they're up to 6.46 now. That means that that bias resistor is too low and must be changed. So I can't go any further till I've changed that. We've got 330 in there now, and of course now that will increase the plate voltage. Now I've increased the resistor, because of course we'll have less current being drawn. So let's go back up to roughly where we were, about 180, weren't it? Somewhere around there. Just reset that, and that's coming up already. Yep, 8.5. Now got 231 volts now. That's sounding pretty good, you know. That's running very smooth indeed by the sound of it. What's coming through that speaker, you perhaps can't hear that. Right, let's try again. So what we got? 8 volts roughly, divided by 330. That's given us 24 milliamps. Let's take that 5% off for the screens. Now I've got, so 23 milliamps. 233. But we're going to have to go again, because that's already 5.3. So they're already at 100% at 182 volts. So now we've got 470 ohm cathode resistors on this. So let's try that. That's pushing up to 9.9. That's 21 milliamps. 19 milliamps. Well, 20 milliamps. 19.95. That's with the 5% off for the screens. Let's see what we've got here. 246, and we're, so we'll call that 10 volts. 236. That's 4.7. That's up to now, so we can now go up a bit higher on the variac. And I'm going to go up to 200 volts now. Right, let's see what we've got now. 10.83 divided by 470. Take away 5%. We've now got 21.8 milliamps. We need a voltage to times it by, and that is 269 less 11, 258. 5.64. So already they're right on the cusp. So I'm going to go up another 10 volts ish. So I've got 214 volts on the variac. We're drawing 197 milliamps. That includes the variac. We've now got 11.5 on there. That's 24.4 milliamps. Take away 5%. 23.2 milliamps. That's a little high, I think, from my calculations. 282. Take away 11. 271. So that's 6.2. So again, over, well over, because we're only at 212 volts, remember. So we've got to go again. Right, I've got 680 ohms in there now. Luckily I've got quite a selection of resistors that I use for biasing. It's absolutely miles out at 270 there. 680 we're up to now. But I think that's going to get us roughly where we want to be. So 240 volts on the variac. 323, 308, 6.6. So we're a little over on there. So it looks like we're going to go even higher. Right, I put 820 ohms in and I have got 5.86 watts, and that is near enough for me. Right, I've skipped ahead a bit and we've had to do quite a bit of work on this amp to get it running properly. So we got it up and running. So the first thing is we've added the diode, and that was my boo-boo there, my major boo-boo. So the data sheet for these PCL83s, the plate voltage max was 250 and not 300. I don't know how I'd got that into my head, but and then the screens are 200 volts and not 250. So we added this diode, this Zener diode, and basically this is between the ground of the rectifier, the bridge rectifier, and from the ground of the caps are grounded this side of the rectifier, and then the Zener diode is connected from here, which is on a tag on the heatsink, and that goes to the bridge rectifier. So the bridge rectifier is not actually wired down to ground of the chassis. This is isolated from the chassis. This heatsink, it's got an isolation pad underneath. So that reduced us about 25 volts. That also then reduced dissipation of the tubes, which meant we could drop the bias resistors. So we finished up with 670 ohms, I think they are, with the actually 672 they measure. We're about 40 volts over, I think, on here, and we're only about 20 volts over on the screen, so I think we'll be okay with that. Let's just look at the front panel. So remove the presence control. That didn't, it kind of worked, but it just not on this project. So I remove that, and they're not that popular anyway, presence controls, are they? The negative feedback removed, so there's no negative feedback on it. As anybody who watches my channel, watches enough of my videos, knows I'm not a lover of negative feedback. So we've added a master volume. We weren't going to add that, but we've decided to add the master volume. So we've now got volume, bass, treble, master volume, and that's mid on there. We've put a grommet in where the presence was. So we just use one of these switches, which is this one, and that one's not being used, and we've used that as for a bright cap on this, it's a switching bright cap on this volume there. So we've got him. So I've reduced the amount of cables, because this is 4-core that I've got in here. That's helped to get, because we'd got quite a lot of cables. I'd done it before and it was a pain, so these all need just binding together. What else have we done? So let's get on to I got this amp to run stable. We've had to use some pretty hefty grid stoppers. Going into the first stage, in the grids through the tone stack, and then the grid stopper for the second stage, that is a 1 meg. We've got that cap over it there, you can see, which is 560 picofarad going over it to bypass the highs. To pass the highs, should I say, over the resistor. So we've got 1 meg in there. I've got a 1 meg grid leak. This was the cathode resistor on this second stage was 1k. It's now 1.5k. And then we've got a grid stopper which is going into the phase inverter from the second stage. That's 470k, because every time I turned the volumes up it was just oscillating. It was okay. Actually, I had a 12A-U7 in there, and it was okay with that, but obviously you couldn't get any drive at all. And then I put a 12A-T7 in. That was better, but then we started getting the problems again with the oscillation. So we've pinned all that down and got all that done, all the oscillation and things. we need to look at how we're going to wire this transformer, because this transformer is, remember, it's got the multi-tappings on for the primary impedance on this. So we finished up, when I'd done all the calculations, we finished up with about 13.5k primary for these tubes, because remember, these tubes are only 5.4 watts dissipation. So now we need to find out what pins we need to use from off this transformer. So this is all running now, and it does sound rather nice. I have had it up and running through the 4x12, but I've not had it in its actual case yet. So we're going to pop this now into its case. We're also going to have a look at the case and see what some of the stuff that I've done to it. Right, so we've got the case here, and you can see we've got the handle on the top now, which was the bottom, is now the top. We put some screws in those holes just to fill them up. Let's have a look at the bottom, which used to be the top. As you can see, we've got the feet on there, and that's where the handle used to be, but we won't see that. So we've got this panel in here to block these off to keep that safe. We've got plenty of ventilation because we've got the slats in the top. We've now, if we look, this is the speaker panel for the sockets at the side. See, now we've got that in there as well. So if we just turn him around, you can see, if we just lift that up and look inside, you can see that's a piece of PVC plastic that's bolted in. We've got, these are the speaker terminals that are going to go from the sockets onto that transformer. You see we've got these little spades on there. So that's all ready to rock and roll. So now we've got to get the amplifier into this case, and to do that we've got to drill a hole in that corner to for the mains lead to go through, and then we've just got to wire these up to the correct pins and then put it all in there, get it all in there and fasten it up, and then we can have a proper listen just to see how this thing sounds. And it does sound pretty good, I have to say. Right, I've got this up and running. It's all back in its case, so we're going to have a bit of a listen. Tune this guitar up first, be a good idea. This set is pretty clean at the minute. So we've got the gain down and the master up. Notice the nice red knobs that we've got on there as well. They're quite matching the decor. gain on it. This thing is loud as well, unbelievably loud. Got the mid there. Get a lot more gain out of this amp if I wanted. There's no cathode bypass capacitors on it at all. I could get a lot more gain, but I've kind of the trouble is with this being a small amp, the more you gain it up, the less chance you've got of getting a clean sound out of it. So, and I could have had them switching in on here, and I did for a while, but it just the gain got too much. The trouble is with that phase inverter, those triodes in those PCL83s, they're very low mu, and they won't stand a lot of driving. So I think I've got this as a fair balance. But what I have got on here, if we turn this gain down, I've got a bright cap on there. Now I can put a bit of bass in. Gives me a much brighter overdrive sound. Where we get, because obviously when we turn this pot full up, it'll cancel out that bright cap. Black Crow's tone on there now. And if we go all the way in now, you can see that's cancelled out the bright cap. You can hear it kick back in. PA40, it, you know, I wouldn't say it's driving it, but it's certainly moving the speakers. It's incredible what's coming out of that, really. So there we have it. We've taken an old solid state PA that would have otherwise just been thrown away and recycled it. We've took some obsolete tubes which probably in the end would be thrown away despite all being new in the wrappers. No one uses those tubes anymore. They're all used in televisions and obviously they've been obsolete since the 70s. We've created something really good out of that, I think, there, and it's not cost a lot of money really to put this together. Transformers probably cost about 80 quid, $80, and the rest really is just components. So you know, this project's probably been done for about £100, and I've got a really tasty sounding amplifier. It also looks quite cool, I think, as well, with these knobs. Let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know what you think of the sound of it as well. So that'll do it for this one. There's still a few tweaks I could do on this amplifier, and I could certainly go on for a lot longer, but it's up and running. It sounds pretty good. There's things we could add to it. We've got and I've still got the switch that goes in there, so we've got options there if we wanted to add something else. But I think I've got a fair balance on this one. So that's it. So thanks for watching, and you all take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon in another video. Bye bye for now.